But first, what we're going to give you is an update on the investigation into this mass shooting. The 8 people killed by 18-year-old shooter Jesse Van Rootselaar have been identified by the RCMP, of course, but a lot of questions remain. I spoke to RCMP Deputy Commissioner Dwayne McDonald just a short time ago. Deputy Commissioner, it's good to meet you, sir. Thank you for joining us at such a busy time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure.
You gave quite an expansive update on what you had learned about the investigation yesterday, but there were a few things left unanswered as the investigation proceeds. I'd like to start with the guns, if we can. You mentioned a long gun and a modified handgun were found there, but no further details while the investigation happened. Are you at a point now where you can tell us more about the specifics of those guns and who maybe owned them?
What I can say, David, is that that information is still embargoed at the request of investigators. It's not that we're not willing to share it. It's just that at this point in time, as our investigation unfolds, we want to make sure that every avenue is covered and that we identify properly how the firearms are used, their origin, whether they were legal or illegal, registered, unregistered, and the like. So we're still in the early stages here, and I hope to release that information as soon as possible, just not right now.
Okay, but in terms of the types of weapons, a long gun can mean anything from a hunting rifle to an automatic weapon. Can you tell us more on that? Was it an automatic? Was it a semi-automatic? Was it a hunting weapon? And what do you mean by a modified handgun? Are these details you can share?
Not in specifics, but I will say just in general terms that the firearms that were recovered at scene were capable of firing multiple rounds.
Okay, so that would suggest it wasn't a single shot or a shotgun. It's something of more than your standard hunting rifle. I'm understanding that correctly, Deputy Commissioner?
That's correct.
Okay, so a question I have following on a revelation you made in your opening statement yesterday that you had seized firearms from the shooter's home in one of the multiple interactions in the past, and then these were returned after the lawful owner petitioned for their return. Were they returned to the home or were they returned to another location? Because I'm wondering if they were taken out of this home for safety reasons and then went back to the place where the shooting started the other day.
I appreciate that question, David. I would say at the start, before I answer, that I have to be mindful, as I was reminded by Crown Counsel this week, that with respect to that incident, there is a sealing order. So I cannot provide specific details about that incident, other than to say that in review of all previous incidents with respect to this individual and their family, police followed proper protocol and the law with respect to any firearms that may or may not come into our possession.
Okay, when you say sealing order, just help me as a as a journalist who's not a lawyer. Does that mean there's a publication ban on it? It's part of some ongoing thing, because we did search for public records on this and there were none. So a sealing order, what does that mean in proper terms?
I believe it's in reference to the age of the individual involved at the time, being a minor.
Okay, so the question all of this raises, and you may not be able to answer this, Deputy Commissioner, because of those restrictions, but were the weapons recovered at the shooting yesterday the same weapons that were seized and returned? Is that something? Because we've seen on the family Facebook pages and on Reddit posts references to weapons that seem capable of this sort of an incident. Were the weapons that were taken in the past and returned part of this incident this week?
You're correct when you say it is all over social media that there were multiple firearms that have been presented at that residence. I cannot confirm for you as yet if they are connected, the crime scene weapons and the weapons in that house. I'm not saying that we don't know, but there are still a couple avenues of investigation that we're pursuing before we're prepared to make that statement.
So is there a timeline on when we can know more? Because you could understand, I'm sure, Deputy Commissioner, the notion of police taking guns during mental health stops, but then maybe being returned and then this happening. People are going to wonder what went wrong potentially here. If there is a connection because of the way the red flag laws work in this country, when can we get this sort of specific?
So I appreciate their significant concern, and I agree with you on that. I would say that we're still in the early stages of this investigation. I'll note that the school itself is still under lockdown and is a secure crime scene, still being forensically examined, as is the residence in question. And so until such time as we release those two scenes and confirm all of the evidence and gather all of the facts, we won't be able to speak to the firearms in any greater detail.
So are we talking a matter of days, or are we talking a matter of weeks, sir? What should we anticipate there?
I wouldn't say it's weeks, David, but it will be certainly a few more days.
When you mentioned the fact that the guns were seized because of concerns about personal harm and frequent visits under the Mental Health Act and mental health issues, I know the way the law is written. The legal gun owner can't petition to have them returned, and that is the way it works. Are you comfortable with that as a deputy commissioner of the RCMP, that you can have this frequency of visits, take weapons, and then return them under the red flag laws as they exist right now?
You know, I think any police officer will tell you that as we deal, probably increasingly so, with mental health calls, mental health crisis in all of our communities across the country, anytime that a firearm is available is a concern. It's something that we, not just in the RCMP, but all police forces have to manage, and something that we are incredibly mindful of. So anytime weapons are at hand for any individual suffering from any type of crisis, it is a concern for police.
We've just received an alert as we're speaking, Deputy Commissioner. Official confirmation of the deceased victims are coming out, the full list of names. The ages are striking when you look at this. 12, 13, 12, 12, 12. You know, not that 39 is old by any stretch of the imagination. Obviously, it's the mother, it's the stepbrother, it's classmates, and just what went into releasing this? Because I know there was a suggestion yesterday, I believe it was, that because they were minors, there could be some issues around this. Is this with the full? I'm assuming this is with the full consent of the family and the community.
It isn't, David. Let me just say, having been on the ground here, I attended the community vigil last night. I've spoken to so many community members. I've spoken to our officers that were the first responders in this instance. The officers coached these kids, hockey, volleyball. They were heavily engaged in the school. This is a community that is reeling right now. They're shaken. They're in disbelief. They're in trauma. They just can't believe it's happened. And everybody knows everybody in this community. As a father, my heart breaks for these people. So there was a lot of sensitivity when we're talking about the victims, particularly with their ages. We always want to proceed with a trauma-informed approach, so that we don't want to re-traumatize the families, the victims, the friends as we deal with this. But I am struck by this community and how remarkably resilient and strong they are, and how they've come together in this incident. They are the best that Canada has to offer, and it makes me proud to be a Canadian as I sit here and grieve with them.
I know you addressed some of the questions about the release of specific information yesterday. You know, as I understand it, the detachment's only about 5 police officers in Tumbler Ridge, and something like this obviously could overwhelm the capacity. And you talked about why it took so long to get some of the information out. But we did see an interview with Lance Young, who's the father of Kylie Smith, who is one of the 12-year-old girls who was killed, expressing some frustration that police were telling them nothing in the hours afterwards, and they were waiting to find out what had happened to their daughter. I just wonder if you've heard those concerns, if you've spoken with Mr. Young, and just what response you might have to that.
I haven't, unfortunately, spoken with Mr. Young. I will say this, and I completely understand his situation and desire for more info. I think what's critically important to recognize is, from the time the 911 call was received, our members were at scene in 2 minutes. They entered the building. They were immediately met with gunfire. They continued to proceed, confronted the suspect. The suspect took his own life. Without getting into too much detail, from that point on, our members had to form up and continue to clear the high school. It is a large structure. There were multiple wounded. There were deceased. It was chaotic. There was uncertainty as whether or not there were other suspects in the building and the like. So unfortunately, this all takes time. Our members evacuated individuals that were in immediate distress that could be evacuated, while also preparing to engage potential other suspects. All of that took time, and it was done in a manner which they couldn't necessarily provide real-time updates to anybody else. Once they were able finally to hold and secure the scene and to evacuate all the students that were not deceased, Then the process begins in trying to identify who those victims are. Again, that takes time. It's devastating. It's traumatic. We certainly don't want to prolong anyone's agony or second guessing about the state or health of their children. But unfortunately, we did that as quick as we possibly could.
No, and Deputy Commissioner, I appreciate that answer and that explanation. And I do want to point out to the audience at home that, we had P.Y. Bourdois on the show last night, a former Deputy Commissioner, and we heard this from Premier David Eby, that the quick entry into the school and the response by the officers there may have limited this tragedy to, as bad as it is, it may have been much worse if they had not gone in right away. Because we have seen other school shootings where police officers failed to do that, and the death toll was much larger as a result.
David, this was an excellent example of our members following their training. These members that responded, Tyler, Nick, John, Bill, their actions were nothing short of heroic, placing their lives in danger to save as many kids as they could. Had they not responded in the manner in which they did, this would have been horrifically worse. I cannot say enough how proud I am of these members and all the members. And I would say it's important to recognize the teachers and students in that school who also showed incredible bravery in protecting one another.
So I have one more area I'm hoping you can help me with some clarification, Deputy Commissioner. We know the 8 who were murdered. We know there are 2, a 12-year-old girl and a 19-year-old woman in hospital being treated as a result of gunshot wounds. The other 25 who presented for treatment, I know this was a little bit unclear yesterday, it's because in a situation like this, people are going to be covered with blood and they would present as injured. Do you have any clarification on just what the status of the injuries were of the other 25 people who were treated? Was it just minor scratches and bumps? Was it they just had blood on them but they weren't actually physically hurt? What clarity do you have on that right now, sir?
Yeah, so significantly, scratches, bumps, bruises. Many of the students were covered in blood. I don't mean to be graphic, but some, by the manner in which they took cover and hid from the suspect, presented as injured as a result of the environment that they were in. Some were suffering from shock, trauma. So those were the nature of the injuries that were treated and triaged at scene.
Have you ever seen anything close to this in your career, sir? I know you don't get to be Deputy Commissioner without a lot of years on the force. We have seen La Loche, we have seen the mosque shooting in Quebec City and of course Portapic, but this one stands out. Have you seen anything similar to this, sir?
David, I spent 14 years of my career in major crime, in homicide and major crime investigations. I've been to many murder scenes, many sudden deaths, many horrific crime scenes. This by far trumps all of those. This is horrifically tragic, not just in the number of victims, but in the age and the devastation it is causing this community.
Deputy Commissioner Dwayne McDonald, I appreciate your time today. Thank you for giving us what information you could, and we look forward to further updates on the weapons. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, David.